I am Claire Mitchell, 34 years old, a nurse from Portland, Oregon. For over a decade, I spent my nights caring for strangers in the ICU, while believing my own husband was the one keeping me safe. The irony wasn't lost on me. I could recognize lies in patients gasping for air, but somehow, I couldn't see the ones breathing next to me in my own bed. I thought our marriage was unshakable, built on honesty, but when I discovered that Mark had been lying to me for years, everything I believed about love crumbled in seconds. Before I share my story, let me know where you are watching from and subscribe if you value standing up for yourself. The morning it all began was painfully ordinary. Mark kissed my forehead before I left for my 12-hour shift, the same gentle ritual he had kept since our wedding day. His lips lingered just long enough to make me think we were still solid, still us. I tucked that comfort in the back of my mind as I walked into the hospital, where alarms blared and life was measured in heartbeats and monitors. By the time I returned home past midnight, exhausted and smelling of antiseptic, Mark was already in bed. His phone, however, was on the kitchen counter, buzzing with notifications. He never left it out. Mark was the type to guard his phone like it contained nuclear codes. Something about it caught my attention, though at first I told myself not to pry. I made tea, trying to calm my restless thoughts. The buzzing didn't stop. Against my better judgment, I picked up the phone. The lock screen glowed with previewed messages, each one from a name I didn't recognize. Can't wait to see you again. Last night was perfect. My stomach clenched. The words blurred, but the meaning was sharp. I set the phone down so fast it clattered against the counter. For a few minutes, I convinced myself it was a misunderstanding. Maybe it was a coworker joking. Maybe a scam. Maybe anything but what it seemed. I climbed the stairs and stared at Mark's sleeping form, his chest rising and falling peacefully. How could someone look so calm while tearing another person's life apart? The next morning, I acted normal. I fried eggs, buttered toast, and asked about his day. He smiled, sipping coffee, spinning some story about meetings. His voice was steady. Mine cracked when I asked casually, "Who's Lauren?" The mug nearly slipped from his hands. "What?" he asked, his tone too sharp. "Your phone kept buzzing last night," I said lightly. "I saw her name." His face smoothed instantly. Practiced, like he'd worn that mask before. "A client," he said. "She's new. Needs a lot of hand-holding." I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to. But something inside me had already shifted. At work, I couldn't focus. The machines beeped, patients moaned, but my thoughts replayed that flicker of panic on Mark's face. It wasn't the look of an innocent man. That night, when he said he had to stay late, I followed him. It felt absurd, like something out of a bad TV drama, but I drove 2 blocks behind his car, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. Instead of turning toward his office, he veered downtown, pulling into a restaurant lit by soft golden lamps. I parked across the street and watched as he stepped out, adjusting his tie the way he always did when he wanted to impress me. Then a woman joined him. She was younger, sleek, her hand brushing his arm with casual intimacy. The smile he gave her was the one he used to reserve for me. Private, warm, worshipful. Something inside me cracked, but I didn't cry. Not yet. Instead, I pulled out my phone and snapped a photo, the lens trembling as much as my hands. Proof. Cold, undeniable proof. Back home, I waited. Hours passed before he walked through the door, loosening his tie like he'd had the longest day at work. He kissed my cheek. My skin burned under the touch. "How was your night?" I asked too evenly. "Busy," he said. "So many meetings." I nodded, then slid my phone across the table. The photo glowed between us, Mark and her frozen in betrayal. His face drained of color. "Claire," he began, but I cut him off. "Don't lie again," I whispered. My voice trembled, but my spine stayed straight. "Not after this." He stammered something about work dinners, clients, misunderstandings. But the mask had slipped, and the truth spilled through the cracks. That night, I slept in the guest room, listening to the silence between us grow into a canyon. I stared at the ceiling, replaying every laugh we had shared, every promise, every whispered forever. They all sounded different now, echoes warped by lies. I didn't cry until dawn when the first light hit the blinds. Then it came all at once, a tidal wave of grief and rage. My marriage, the thing I had believed was the safest part of my chaotic life, was nothing more than a story Mark had been selling me. And I realized, as the sun rose on my new reality, that the life I thought I had was already over. The morning after the photo changed everything. Mark acted like nothing had happened. He stood in the kitchen making coffee, humming a tune I barely recognized, as if he hadn't just detonated our life. I sat at the table, staring at him, trying to reconcile the man I thought I married with the stranger in front of me. He noticed my silence. "Rough night?" he asked casually, sliding a mug toward me. I wanted to scream. Instead, I pushed the mug away. "Don't do that, Mark. Don't pretend." His jaw tightened. For a moment, the mask slipped again, showing frustration, maybe even fear. "Claire, I told you, it's complicated." Complicated. My laugh was sharp, brittle. "That's what you call sneaking around with another woman?" He rubbed his temple, sighing like I was being difficult, like I was the problem. "It's not what you think." "It's exactly what I think," I shot back. "I saw you. I have proof. Stop insulting me with lies." He opened his mouth, then closed it. The silence between us stretched like a wire pulled too tight. Finally, he muttered, "Fine, we had dinner." "That's all." "Dinner," I repeated, my voice flat. "So you wear your best tie and give her the smile you used to give me. For dinner?" Mark slammed his fist against the counter, making me flinch. "Do you want me to say it? Is that what you want? That I screwed up? That I made a mistake?" I swallowed hard. "Yes, I want the truth. For once in our marriage, I want the truth." He turned away, staring out the window. His shoulders sagged, and when he spoke, his voice was low. "It's been going on a while. Longer than I want to admit." The words punched the air out of my lungs. I gripped the table edge to steady myself. "How long?" 2 years, he said finally. "Her name's Lauren. We met at a conference." 2 years. My mind reeled. 2 years of lies, of shared beds, of whispered I love yous that now tasted like poison. 2 years of building a life together while he built another one behind my back. I stood, my legs shaky. "Do you have any idea what that means, Mark? Every memory we've made in the past 2 years is tainted. Every holiday, every night, every touch. All of it's a lie." His eyes flicked to me, desperate, pleading. "It wasn't all a lie. I love you, Claire." I shook my head, tears blurring my vision. "You don't betray someone you love. You don't do this." I grabbed my bag and walked out before he could stop me. The cold Portland air hit me like a slap, but it felt better than suffocating in that house. I got into my car, but instead of starting it, I just sat there, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. My chest heaved with sobs I had been holding back since last night. After 10 minutes, I forced myself to breathe. I couldn't go back inside, not yet. Instead, I drove aimlessly, the city streets blurring past. Every familiar corner reminded me of Mark, our favorite coffee shop, the bookstore where he'd once surprised me with flowers, the park bench where he had proposed. It all felt contaminated now. I ended up at the hospital, even though it wasn't my shift. Parking in the back lot, I sat in silence. The irony struck me again. I could handle strangers' lives in crisis, but I couldn't handle my own. My phone buzzed. It was Mark. I let it go to voicemail. Then another buzz, this time a text. "We need to talk." "Please come home," I typed back. "Not now." For hours I sat in my car drifting between numbness and rage. At one point, I scrolled through old photos on my phone. Vacations, anniversaries, selfies of us grinning like fools. I studied his face in those pictures, searching for signs I had missed. Was he already lying then? Did she already exist in his life when he wrapped his arms around me, promising forever? By the time I finally drove home, dusk had settled over the neighborhood. His car was still in the driveway, but the house was dark. Inside, I found him sitting on the couch, head in his hands. He looked up when I entered. His eyes were red, but I didn't know if it was from guilt or fear of losing his comfort. "Claire," he said softly. "I'll end it. I'll cut her off. Just don't give up on us." I stood by the door, my keys still in my hand. "End it? Mark, You ended us the moment you chose her over me for 2 years. He got up, walking toward me cautiously, like I was a wild animal he didn't want to spook. I can fix this. I'll do anything. Counseling, honesty, whatever it takes. I swear I'll change. I stepped back, shaking my head. You don't get to break me for years and then suddenly promise to glue me back together. That's not how this works. His voice broke. I don't want to lose you. You already did, I whispered. The silence after that was unbearable. I went upstairs, locked the bedroom door, and packed a small bag. Just clothes for a few nights, essentials. Mark knocked on the door twice, begging to talk, but I ignored him. At midnight, I slipped out of the house and drove to my friend Rachel's apartment. When she opened the door and saw my face, she didn't ask questions. She just pulled me into a hug, and for the first time all day, I let myself fall apart in someone's arms. The next morning, over coffee in Rachel's cluttered kitchen, I told her everything. She listened, her eyes narrowing in anger. 2 years? That's not a mistake, Claire. That's a choice. Over and over again, her words pierced me. A choice. He had chosen Lauren, chosen lies, chosen betrayal, hundreds of times over 2 years. I don't know what to do, I admitted, my voice breaking. Rachel squeezed my hand. You don't have to decide today, but you deserve better. Remember that. Her words lingered with me all day. For the first time since the truth came out, I felt a flicker of something other than despair, a flicker of strength. Rachel's couch became my refuge for the next few nights. Her apartment was cramped, the walls lined with bookshelves and half-finished art projects, but it felt safer than the cold silence of my own home. She made tea every evening without asking, and we sat together in quiet companionship while I tried to untangle my thoughts. I avoided Mark's calls. At first, they came every hour, then less frequently. His voicemails piled up, each one a variation of the same desperate plea. Please, Claire. Come home, we can work this out. I'll change. I listened to none of them. The sound of his voice made my stomach twist. One morning, as I left Rachel's apartment for work, Mark was waiting by my car. His eyes were bloodshot, his suit wrinkled, as though he hadn't slept in days. Claire, please, he said, stepping forward. I froze, clutching my bag tighter. Mark, don't ambush me like this. I had no choice. You won't answer my calls. I need to see you. There's nothing left to say. He shook his head frantically. That's not true. We've built a life together. Don't throw it away. I glared at him. You threw it away the moment you chose her over me. For 2 years, Mark. 2 years of lies. He flinched as though the words were physical blows. I made a mistake. I let out a bitter laugh. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. A mistake is leaving the milk out overnight. What you did? That's a double life. His shoulders sagged. For the first time, he looked small, defeated. I can't lose you, Claire. I'll do anything. I shook my head. Then you should have thought of that before you lied every single day. Without another word, I got into my car and drove off, leaving him standing alone in the parking lot. My hands trembled on the steering wheel, but I refused to look back. At the hospital, I slipped into the rhythm of work, grateful for the distraction. Patients needed me. Their crises were real, immediate, and far removed from my personal chaos. But even as I checked vitals and adjusted IV drips, Mark's shadow clung to me. During lunch, Rachel texted me. He came by the apartment. I didn't let him in. Thought you should know. I sighed, my appetite gone. His desperation was starting to feel like pressure, like he was trying to corner me into forgiveness I wasn't ready to give. That night, lying on Rachel's couch, I replayed our entire marriage in my mind. The late-night talks, the laughter, the promises whispered in the dark. Were they all lies, or had there been love once, twisted and buried under his betrayal? The not knowing hurt almost as much as the cheating itself. By the 5th day, exhaustion weighed me down. I couldn't avoid decisions forever. I needed space, not just from Mark, but from the constant swirl of memories. So I called my sister, Hannah. When she picked up, her voice was bright, warm. Claire, it's been ages. I swallowed hard. Can I come stay with you for a bit? I need to get away. There was a pause, then a gentle, Of course. Come as long as you need. Hannah lived 2 hours away in a small coastal town. I packed my bag that night, hugged Rachel tightly, and promised to call. Driving along the highway the next morning, the city skyline faded behind me, replaced by open roads and glimpses of the ocean. For the first time in days, I felt like I could breathe. Hannah's house was small but cozy, with soft blankets draped over the couches and the smell of cinnamon lingering in the air. She hugged me fiercely at the door, then pulled back to study my face. "What happened?" she asked softly. I hesitated, then the words tumbled out. The photo, the lies, the confession. Her eyes widened, then hardened with anger. "That bastard," she whispered. 2 years? I nodded, my throat tight. I don't even know who I married anymore. Hannah wrapped an arm around my shoulders. "You don't have to figure it out alone. Stay here as long as you need. We'll get through this." That night, curled up in her guest room, I scrolled through my phone. Mark had sent another string of messages. "I'm sorry." "I love you. She means nothing. Please come back." I deleted them without reading further. His words were empty now. The next morning, Hannah made pancakes, and we sat at her kitchen table overlooking the sea. "Do you want to know the truth, Claire?" she asked between bites. I frowned. "What truth?" "You've always been the strong one. Even when we were kids, you carried the weight of everyone else's problems. But strength doesn't mean staying with someone who breaks you. It means walking away when you know you deserve better." Her words sank deep, resonating in places I didn't want to touch. Was walking away strength? Or was I too afraid to try to fix what was broken? Later that afternoon, I went for a walk along the beach. The waves crashed against the shore, relentless, endless. I thought about how water erodes stone over time, wearing it down bit by bit until it breaks apart. That's what Mark had done to me. Every lie, every secret had chipped away at us until nothing solid remained. As I watched the tide roll in, my phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't Mark. It was a number I didn't recognize. I hesitated, then answered. "Claire?" A woman's voice, tentative, uncertain. "Yes, who is this?" "This is Lauren." My blood ran cold. My hand tightened on the phone. "Why are you calling me? I thought you should know the truth," she said, her voice trembling. "Mark's been lying to both of us." The world tilted. My knees nearly buckled. "What are you talking about?" "He told me he was divorced," she whispered. "That you were out of the picture years ago." "I didn't know, Claire. I swear I didn't." Her words echoed in my ears, each one heavier than the last. Divorced. Out of the picture. He hadn't just cheated. He had erased me entirely in his other life. The silence between us stretched until she spoke again, her voice breaking. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you. I thought I was the only one." I hung up before she could say more, my chest heaving with ragged breaths. The waves roared in the distance, but all I could hear was the shattering of the last illusion I had clung to. Mark hadn't just betrayed me. He had built an entire life on lies, deceiving not only me but her too. And for the first time since it all began, I felt something sharper than grief. Rage. I stood on the shoreline with my phone still in my hand, the cold wind cutting against my face. The tide crept closer, foamy water rushing over my shoes, but I barely noticed. Lauren's words replayed in my head like a broken record. He told me he was divorced. "You were out of the picture years ago. I had thought Mark's betrayal couldn't cut any deeper. I was wrong." By the time I trudged back to Hannah's house, I felt like I was walking through a fog. She was sitting on the couch with a mug of tea, her eyes narrowing when she saw my expression. "What happened?" I sat down heavily beside her. She called me Lauren, the other woman. Hannah's jaw dropped. "What? How the hell did she even get your number?" "I don't know, but she said Mark told her he was divorced, that I was long gone. He wasn't just cheating Hannah. He was living 2 lives. Her eyes flashed with fury. Unbelievable. He didn't just betray you, he erased you. The truth of her words made my chest ache. I had spent years sacrificing, supporting him, building our life together. And in another world with her, he had acted like I never existed. "I don't know what to do," I whispered. "I don't even know who I am anymore. Was everything just a performance?" Hannah put a hand on my arm. "You're still you, Claire. You're the one who saved lives every day at the hospital, the one who stayed loyal while he lied. Don't let his deceit define you. I nodded, though the words felt like distant echoes, too far away to reach me. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Mark laughing with Lauren, building a life where I didn't exist. My stomach twisted with nausea at the thought of how many dinners he had shared with her, how many lies he must have told to keep both of us in his orbit. The next morning, Mark called again. My finger hovered over the decline button, but rage got the better of me. I answered, "Claire." His voice was frantic, desperate. "Thank God, please listen to me. Why did Lauren call me?" I snapped. There was a beat of silence. Then a shaky breath. She wasn't supposed to what? Find out the truth? Just like I wasn't supposed to? My voice trembled with anger. You told her you were divorced. You told her I didn't exist. Do you have any idea how humiliating this is? I can explain. No. My shout made Hannah appear in the doorway, concern etched on her face. You don't get to explain anymore, Mark. You don't get to spin another story. You lied to both of us. For years, his voice cracked. I didn't want to lose her. I didn't want to lose you either. I was stupid, selfish. But I love you, Claire. I swear I do. I laughed bitterly. Love? You don't even know what love means. Love doesn't erase someone's existence. Love doesn't build castles of lies and expect everyone to live inside them. Please, he begged. Just come home. We can fix this. I ended the call without another word. My hands were shaking so badly that Hannah gently took the phone from me and set it on the table. Don't give him another chance to manipulate you, she said firmly. For the rest of the day, I felt hollow. Even the sea breeze, usually calming, did nothing to soothe the storm inside me. Lauren's trembling voice replayed in my head. She wasn't the enemy. She was another victim, blindsided by the same man. That evening, a knock came at the door. Hannah frowned, peeking out the window. It's a woman. My heart stuttered. I had a feeling I knew who it was. When Hannah opened the door, Lauren stood there, clutching her purse like a shield. She was younger than me, maybe late 20s, with tired eyes and a face that looked like it hadn't stopped crying. Claire? She asked softly. I stepped forward. What are you doing here? I needed to see you, please. Just 5 minutes. Hannah gave me a questioning look, but I nodded. We sat at the kitchen table, the air heavy with awkwardness. I'm sorry for calling, Lauren began, her voice breaking. I didn't know what else to do. When I realized you were still his wife, I felt sick. Her eyes filled with tears. I thought he was divorced. He said you left him, that you didn't want him anymore. He made me believe we were building something real. And now I see I was just another piece in his lie. I studied her. There was no malice, no arrogance, just heartbreak that mirrored my own. I thought you were my enemy, I admitted quietly, but you were just as deceived as I was. We sat in silence for a moment, two strangers bound by the same wound. I ended things with him, Lauren said finally. As soon as I found out, I told him never to contact me again. Good, I whispered. He doesn't deserve either of us. Lauren wiped her eyes, standing up. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know the truth. And I'm sorry, for everything. After she left, Hannah turned to me. Well, that says it all, doesn't it? I leaned against the counter, my chest heavy. Yeah, it does. For the first time, the fog in my head began to clear. There was no fixing this, no salvaging the life I had built with Mark. It wasn't just betrayal. It was annihilation of trust, of identity. That night, I opened my laptop and began typing. The words flowed with surprising steadiness. Petition for divorce. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just typed, my fingers moving as though they already knew what my heart had accepted. By the time I closed the laptop, a strange calm washed over me. The silence in Hannah's house felt different now. Not oppressive, not heavy, but freeing. For the first time in years, I felt like I could finally hear my own voice. The morning sun streamed through Hannah's kitchen window, warming the mug in my hands. For the first time in weeks, I wasn't waking up with Mark's lies pressing down on my chest. Instead, I had something else. Resolve. The petition sat saved on my laptop, waiting to be printed. Just seeing those words typed out, petition for divorce, gave me strength. Hannah walked in, tying her robe around her waist. She eyed me carefully. "You look different today," I gave a faint smile. I finally made a decision. "I'm done, Hannah. I'm divorcing him." Her eyes softened with pride. "Good. That man doesn't deserve another ounce of your time." Saying it out loud anchored me. I wasn't Mark's pawn anymore. I wasn't the woman waiting at home while he played house with someone else. I was reclaiming myself. Later that morning, I drove back to the city. Hannah hugged me tightly before I left, whispering, "You're stronger than you know." As I pulled into the familiar neighborhood, I felt my stomach tighten. Our house loomed ahead, the garden neatly trimmed, the curtains drawn. It looked the same, but everything inside had changed. I parked a block away and sat there for a few moments, gripping the steering wheel. This was my home, my sanctuary, and yet, because of him, it now felt like a stranger's place. When I walked inside, the silence hit me first. No scent of his cologne, no sound of his keys jangling. I stood in the entryway, my chest rising and falling quickly. I wasn't sure if I wanted to scream or cry. Instead, I went straight upstairs, opened the safe in our closet, and pulled out every document I would need: marriage certificate, tax returns, bank statements. My hands were steady. I was on autopilot. Halfway through gathering papers, I spotted one of his shirts draped across the bed. The sight stopped me cold. It was the navy button-down he always wore on our anniversaries. I lifted it, the faint scent of him still clinging to the fabric. For a second, grief tried to pull me back into its tide. But then the memory of Lauren's trembling voice echoed in my mind. He told me he was divorced. "You were out of the picture years ago." I threw the shirt into a trash bag. One by one, I stripped the closet of everything that belonged to him. Ties, jackets, cufflinks, socks. Every piece screamed betrayal. By the time I was done, 2 full bags sat by the door, ready for the donation center. The act was cathartic, like removing poison from a wound. By noon, I was sitting in a lawyer's office, my heart pounding as I signed retainer papers. The attorney, a sharp-eyed woman named Ms. Alvarez, leaned forward after I explained everything. "You have a strong case, Claire. His financial dishonesty, the infidelity, the emotional toll, it's all grounds. You don't have to fight this alone." Her words were firm, almost motherly. For the first time in weeks, I felt protected. When I left her office, I stepped into the crisp air and breathed deeply. Each inhale felt like a step away from Mark's web of lies. But the freedom wasn't complete. That night, as I cooked myself dinner for the first time in our quiet kitchen, my phone buzzed. His name lit up the screen again. This time, I didn't hesitate. I answered. "Claire, please," he said immediately. His voice was ragged. "Don't do this. We can fix it. I'll cut her off. I'll prove myself to you." I laughed, sharp and humorless. "You already cut me off years ago, Mark. You just didn't tell me." "Don't talk like that. I love you. You love yourself. That's all you've ever loved." My voice was shaking now, but with fury, not fear. "You built a whole second life and erased me from it. Do you have any idea what that does to a person?" His breathing hitched. "I was scared of losing you. Then why lie? Why make me invisible in someone else's world?" He stammered, but I didn't wait for an answer. "I've filed for divorce." "You'll be served soon." Silence. Then a low growl. "You don't mean that." "I do." "Claire, listen to me." "No, Mark. For once, you listen." My voice rose with years of pent-up anger. "I'm not your safety net. I'm not the quiet shadow in the background while you play the perfect man somewhere else. I'm done." The call ended with me pressing end before he could respond. My hand trembled, but inside, something unshakable had taken root. Later, I sat at the dining table, staring at the candlelight flickering across the room. The house was empty, but it was my empty now. No secrets, no lies, just me. That night I wrote in my journal, something I hadn't done in years. He broke me, but I'm building myself again. This time stronger. This time unbreakable. Over the next week, the process began to move quickly. Papers filed, accounts frozen, assets reviewed. Each step was like peeling off another chain I hadn't realized I was carrying. Neighbors whispered, Friends called, some shocked, others supportive. Lauren texted once more, apologizing again. But I didn't respond. I didn't need more from her. Her truth had already set me free. One evening, while packing away old photos, I paused over a frame from our wedding day. Mark's smile was radiant, his arm around me, as if I were the center of his universe. I stared at that picture for a long time before sliding it into a box marked evidence. It wasn't my job anymore to keep his secrets. That night, I slept deeply for the first time since the truth shattered my life. My dreams weren't haunted by his lies, but filled with quiet, simple images, a sunlit path, a wide-open door, a sea stretching endlessly forward. And when I woke, I realized something profound. I was no longer afraid of tomorrow. The divorce papers were filed, and for the first time in years, I thought Mark's power over me was finally broken. But I underestimated him. Mark wasn't the type of man to let go quietly. He thrived on control, and when he realized he was losing it, he started to unravel. It began with flowers, dozens of them. Roses, lilies, sunflowers, bouquets arriving at my door every single day. The first time I froze, staring at the card tucked inside. "Forgive me, come home. Mark." I tossed the bouquet into the trash. The second time, I left them on the porch until they wilted. By the fifth delivery, I had stopped even opening the cards. The flowers became nothing but rotting reminders of the love he claimed to feel, but had already betrayed beyond repair. When that didn't work, he escalated. My phone buzzed constantly with messages. At first they were pleading, "Claire, please answer me. We can fix this. Don't throw away everything we built." Then they'd turn darker. "You'll regret this. You're nothing without me. If you think you can win, you're wrong." I blocked his number. But blocking him didn't stop him. The next morning, I walked out to find him leaning against his car across the street, watching my house. He didn't move or call out, just stood there, arms crossed, eyes fixed on me. My heart thudded in my chest, but I forced myself not to react. I locked my door and drove to work, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly they ached. That evening, I told Hannah. "He's stalking you," she said bluntly. "You need a restraining order." "I already feel like I'm living in a courtroom," I muttered, sinking into her couch. Hannah reached over, taking my hand. "Claire, this isn't about the divorce anymore. This is about your safety. You can't let him intimidate you back into silence." She was right. The next morning, I marched back into Ms. Alvarez's office and told her everything. She listened carefully, her sharp eyes narrowing. "Document everything," she instructed. "Dates, times, messages, flowers, even if he's just parked outside. If we need to go before a judge, we'll need evidence." So I started a log. Each flower delivery, each text, each shadow of him across the street went into that journal. It felt surreal, like my life had turned into a case file. A week later, Mark cornered me. I had just stepped out of the grocery store when he appeared, blocking my path. "Claire," he said, his voice low, almost gentle. His eyes, though, burned with desperation. "Please, just hear me out." I tightened my grip on the grocery bag. "Move, Mark. I made mistakes, I know, but we can fix this. We were good together once." I shook my head. "We were an illusion." "You made sure of that?" His jaw clenched. "You're letting them poison you. Hannah, the lawyer, whoever else. They don't understand us." "They understand enough," I snapped. "They understand betrayal. They understand lies." He stepped closer, and I felt my pulse spike. "Claire, don't do this. Don't throw me away." I forced my voice to steady. "You threw me away the moment you built another life behind my back." For a second, something flickered in his eyes. Rage, raw and unfiltered. But just as quickly, he smoothed it over with that false charm I once fell for. "You'll regret this," he murmured, then stepped aside. I walked past him, not looking back, but the echo of his words followed me all the way home. That night, as I lay in bed, I couldn't shake the feeling that the battle was only beginning. And I was right. 2 days later, Ms. Alvarez called me. "Mark has filed a counter-petition." My stomach dropped. "What does that mean?" "It means he's contesting the divorce. He's claiming you were unfaithful." I laughed bitterly. "That's ridiculous." "He's the one who cheated," she nodded. "I know. But he's hoping to muddy the waters. make you look unreliable, paint you as the villain. The unfairness burned in my chest. After everything, he still wanted to destroy me, but Miss Alvarez wasn't rattled. Don't worry. We'll dismantle every lie he tries to tell. You just keep documenting everything. So that's what I did. When Mark sent me another barrage of texts, I saved screenshots. When he followed me to the coffee shop one morning, I noted the time and place. When he sent an email filled with half apologies and half threats, I forwarded it straight to Ms. Alvarez, piece by piece. I was building a wall of truth around myself. Still, it took its toll. I found myself jumping at shadows, double-checking locks, scanning crowds for his face. At work, my boss noticed my distraction, but when I tried to explain, my voice cracked with the shame of it all. One evening, Hannah dropped by unannounced with takeout. She found me sitting on the couch surrounded by papers, eyes swollen from crying. "You can't let him break you, Claire," she said firmly, setting the food down. "That's what he wants. That's how he keeps control." I looked at her helplessly. "I don't know if I can keep fighting." "Yes, you can," she said, kneeling in front of me. "You've already come this far. Don't give him the satisfaction of seeing you crumble." Her words lit a small spark inside me. Later that night, as I looked over my growing log of Mark's harassment, I realized something important. Every desperate move he made was proof. Proof of the man he truly was, not the one he pretended to be. And proof meant power. If he wanted to fight, I would fight. But this time, on my terms. The day of the hearing arrived, and my stomach was a knot of nerves. For weeks, Mark had tried everything to intimidate me. Threats, charm, desperation, and lies. Now he was going to parade those lies in front of a judge. Hannah drove me to the courthouse, her hand steady on mine the whole ride. "You're ready," she said firmly as we pulled into the parking lot. "You have the truth on your side. Remember that." But truth felt fragile compared to the storm Mark was capable of creating. Inside, the courthouse smelled faintly of old wood and paper, a place where lives were decided in tidy little rooms. Ms. Alvarez met us by the courtroom door, her navy suit crisp, her confidence steady. She handed me a folder. "This is everything we've prepared. Keep calm, answer clearly, and let me handle the fire." When we stepped inside, my breath caught. Mark was already there, sitting at the opposite table with his attorney. He looked polished, dark suit, hair perfectly styled, posture upright. To anyone else, he looked like a respectable husband fighting for his marriage. But I knew better. When his eyes met mine, he smirked, the same smirk that once charmed me, and now only made my skin crawl. The judge entered, and the proceedings began. Mark's lawyer rose first, painting a picture of me as the unstable wife. "Your Honor," he began smoothly, "my client has suffered years of emotional neglect. Mrs. Anderson pursued inappropriate relationships during the marriage, and when confronted, she abandoned him without warning." My jaw clenched so hard it hurt. Lies. All lies. Ms. Alvarez squeezed my hand under the table, silently urging me to stay calm. When it was her turn, she stood tall. "Your Honor," she said clearly, "the evidence will show a very different story. Mrs. Anderson has endured betrayal, financial deceit, and harassment since filing for divorce. We have documented proof of Mr. Anderson's behavior." The judge nodded, and testimony began. Mark went first. He painted himself as the victim, voice steady, expression pained. He spoke of my supposed coldness, my career ambitions, my failure to prioritize family. At one point, he even dabbed his eyes with a handkerchief. Watching him perform made my stomach churn. I remembered nights when I cried myself to sleep while he stayed out late, claiming work. I remembered how he dismissed my concerns with a laugh or a sneer. And now he dared to play the wounded husband. Finally, it was my turn. I walked to the witness stand, my knees trembling but my spine straight. I swore the oath and sat down, forcing myself to meet the judge's gaze. "Mrs. Anderson," Ms. Alvarez began gently, "can you describe the events that led you to file for divorce?" I took a deep breath. I discovered Mark had been unfaithful, not once but over several years. He lied to my face. built entire relationships behind my back, while pretending to be a loving husband at home. Mark shifted in his chair, his jaw tightening. "And after you filed," Ms. Alvarez prompted, "he harassed me. Flowers, messages, threats. He showed up at my home, followed me, cornered me in public places. I kept a log of every incident." She handed the log to the judge, along with printed texts and emails. The judge flipped through them, his expression growing more serious with each page. Mark's lawyer tried to object, but the judge silenced him. "This will be admitted." For the first time, Mark's polished mask cracked. His smirk faltered, replaced by a flash of anger. When his lawyer cross-examined me, he tried to twist my words, implying I was exaggerating. "Mrs. Anderson, isn't it true you were seen dining with another man shortly after filing for divorce?" "Yes," I said evenly. "With my colleague. We had lunch to discuss a project." "That doesn't make it an affair," he pressed on. "And the emotional instability you describe. Could it be that you were projecting your own guilt?" I looked straight at him. No. The instability came from living with a man who lied daily and then stalked me when I found the courage to leave. The judge leaned forward. "Counsel, move on." By the time I stepped down, my hands were shaking, but I felt something I hadn't in months: power. I had spoken my truth under oath, and it was on record. The hearing ended with the judge ordering a restraining order against Mark, pending the final decision. The look on his face as the gavel struck was a mix of rage and disbelief. He wasn't used to losing control. Outside the courtroom, Hannah hugged me tightly. "You were incredible," she whispered. But I could see Mark in the hallway, his mask slipping further. His face was red, his fists clenched, his lawyer speaking quickly in his ear to calm him. He caught my eye, and for the first time, I saw fear there. Not just anger, fear of losing, fear of exposure, fear of the empire of lies collapsing around him. That night, I sat at Hannah's kitchen table, exhausted. She poured me tea, her eyes soft. "It's not over yet," she said, "but you've already won something huge. He can't touch you now. Not legally, not emotionally," I nodded, tears welling up. For so long I thought he held all the power. But today, for the first time, I saw him crack. Hannah squeezed my hand. "That's the beginning of the end for him, and the beginning of your freedom." As I lay in bed later, I replayed the day. The lies he told, the mask he wore, the cracks that had started to show. I realized Mark wasn't the invincible man I once feared. He was just a coward hiding behind lies. And those lies were finally catching up with him. And deep down, I knew this was only the start of his downfall. The morning after the hearing, I woke up lighter than I had in months. For once, I wasn't checking my phone in dread of another message from Mark. The restraining order was in place, and the silence was the sweetest sound I had ever known. But silence doesn't last long when a man like Mark starts losing control. By midweek, Hannah forwarded me a link. "Claire, you need to see this," she said over the phone, her voice tinged with both shock and satisfaction. I clicked the link and froze. It was an article from a local business journal. Prominent consultant faces legal troubles amid divorce battle. There was a photo of Mark in his usual power suit, looking sharp and confident. But the headline told another story. The article detailed the restraining order, the harassment claims, and the financial irregularities Ms. Alvarez had begun investigating. His professional world was no longer immune. I read it twice, barely breathing. "It's public," I whispered. "Very public," Hannah confirmed. "And people are talking." Within days, the fallout began. His clients started pulling contracts. Word spread quickly in his industry, and Mark's reputation, the one he had built with charm and intimidation, began to unravel. I saw him again a week later, not by choice. I was leaving my office building when I spotted him across the street. He wasn't polished this time. His tie was loose, his hair unkempt, his eyes wild. He shouted my name, but the security guard nearby stepped between us immediately. "Sir, you need to move along," the guard said firmly. Mark sneered but didn't push it. He just glared at me, his eyes burning with hate and something else: desperation. Then he turned and stormed off into the crowd. Inside, my knees buckled, but I forced myself upright. He wanted me to see him unraveling, to feel afraid again, but all I felt was pity. That night, Hannah and I sat on the couch scrolling through social media. The comments under the article were brutal. Former colleagues, ex-clients, even acquaintances chimed in. I always knew there was something off about him. He tried to pressure me into a bad deal once. Not surprised at all. Men like him think they're untouchable. Glad to see justice. Each comment was another crack in the image he had tried so hard to maintain. Ms. Alvarez called later that week. "Claire, we've uncovered financial mismanagement that could be serious. He siphoned money from your joint accounts into a private fund, but the trail is sloppy. If we move forward, he could face charges." My heart pounded. For years, I had thought Mark was meticulous, untouchable, a man who never left a trace. But here he was, sloppy and reckless, blinded by arrogance. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now," she said calmly, "we let him destroy himself. The evidence is strong, and his temper is doing the rest." Sure enough, Mark's unraveling reached a breaking point 2 weeks later. I was preparing dinner with Hannah when my phone buzzed with a message from a number I didn't recognize. Against my better judgment, I opened it. It was a single line. "You ruined me, but you'll regret this." I showed it to Hannah immediately. She grabbed the phone. "We're sending this to Ms. Alvarez. Now." By the next morning, Mark had been warned by the police. Another violation, they told him, and he'd face arrest. The man who once controlled everything was now under constant watch. But his downfall wasn't just legal. It was personal, too. Friends stopped returning his calls. His own brother, Mark, reached out to me privately. "I don't know if this helps," Mark said awkwardly over coffee. "But Mark has always been like this. Controlling, manipulative. Our family ignored it for years. I'm sorry it took this long for people to see the truth." I studied Mark's face, searching for insincerity, but there was only shame. "Thank you for telling me," I said softly. "But I don't need apologies from you. I just need him gone from my life." Mark nodded. "Believe me, he's burning every bridge on his own. You won't have to lift a finger." And he was right. A month later, Mark's consulting firm shut down. Clients had abandoned him, lawsuits piled up, and his name was poison in professional circles. The man who once boasted about being untouchable couldn't even hold on to a business license. I should have felt triumphant, but what I felt was different. Relief, yes, but also sorrow for the years I had wasted believing in a man who was nothing more than a mask. One evening, Hannah found me sitting on the porch, staring into the fading sunset. "He's done, Claire." "It's over," she said gently. I shook my head. "Not over, but close. He still thinks he can hurt me somehow. I can see it in his eyes." She squeezed my shoulder. "Then let him try. Because every time he does, he digs himself deeper." And she was right. Each threat, each slip, each crack in his mask brought him closer to the end of the life he had built on lies. For the first time in years, I felt steady, strong. I wasn't just surviving his betrayal anymore. I was watching his entire empire collapse, and I was finally free to imagine my own future without him. I thought the worst was behind me. The restraining order was holding, his business was gone, and his name was stained beyond repair. But men like Mark don't accept defeat quietly. They cling to control with bloody fingers until there's nothing left to hold on to. It started with a letter, not from him directly, but from his lawyer, delivered in a stiff white envelope, stamped urgent. "Claire," Hannah said when she handed it to me, "don't open it alone." We sat together at my kitchen table. My hands shook slightly as I tore it open. It was a demand. Mark was suing me for defamation, claiming my false accusations had destroyed his career. "Unbelievable," I muttered, my chest tight. Hannah scoffed. "Defamation? The truth isn't defamation. And besides, he destroyed himself." Still, the thought of another battle drained me. I forwarded the letter to Ms. Alvarez, who called within the hour. "This is desperation," she said firmly. "The lawsuit has no merit. It's a last-ditch attempt to intimidate you. Don't panic. We'll crush it." Her confidence steadied me, but I couldn't shake the unease. Mark wasn't filing lawsuits for justice. He was making noise, trying to pull me back into his chaos. 2 weeks later, the court date arrived. I walked into the courthouse with Ms. Alvarez at my side, Hannah sitting behind us for support. Mark was already there, slouched at the plaintiff's table. The sight of him made my stomach lurch. He looked thinner, his once-tailored suit hanging loosely on his frame. His eyes darted around the room, restless, calculating. When he saw me, he smirked. That same smirk that once made me feel small, powerless. But now, it looked hollow, a shadow of what it used to be. The judge entered, and the proceedings began. Mark's lawyer launched into a speech about reputations ruined and lies told. He painted me as a vindictive ex-wife, hungry for revenge. I clenched my fists under the table, anger simmering. But when Ms. Alvarez stood, her calm voice cut through the courtroom like steel. Your Honor, every claim my client made is supported by evidence. Police reports, financial records, recordings. This case isn't about defamation. It's about a man unwilling to face the consequences of his own actions. She placed a thick binder on the table with a solid thud. We have documented proof of his misconduct, including bank transfers, client complaints, and violations of the restraining order. The judge flipped through the pages, frowning. Mark shifted in his seat, his smirk fading. When it was my turn to testify, I walked to the stand with trembling hands but steady steps. I told the truth. About the lies, the manipulation, the betrayal. About the threats, the night I found him waiting outside my office. The text that said I would regret this. As I spoke, I caught glimpses of the jury. Their faces were unreadable, but their eyes were fixed on me, not him. Mark tried to interrupt, shaking his head, muttering under his breath. At one point, he slammed his hand on the table. "Objection!" his lawyer shouted, but the judge silenced Mark with a sharp glare. "Mr. Thompson, if you cannot control yourself, you will be removed from this courtroom." The rest of the day unraveled quickly. Ms. Alvarez dismantled his arguments piece by piece until there was nothing left. By the time the judge dismissed the case, Mark was pale, defeated. His lawsuit was thrown out with prejudice, meaning he could never file it again. But his desperation didn't end there. That night, I found him waiting outside my apartment building. I froze at the sight of him leaning against a lamppost, his eyes locked on me. My heart pounded, but I forced myself to stand tall. "You lost," I said firmly, my voice echoing in the quiet street. His laugh was sharp, bitter. "You think this is over? You think ruining me makes you safe?" "Safe?" I repeated, anger flaring. "I was never safe with you. That's the difference now. I don't need your approval, your protection, or your permission. You have nothing left to take from me." He stepped forward, but before he could get closer, headlights swept across the street. A police cruiser pulled up, and 2 officers got out. Mark's face twisted with rage as the officers approached. "She set me up," he shouted, but they weren't listening to him. They had the reports, the restraining order violations, the threats. "Mr. Thompson," one officer said, "you're under arrest for harassment and violation of a court order." The sound of handcuffs clicking shut was the most satisfying sound I had ever heard. As they led him away, Mark looked back at me one last time. His glare was venomous but powerless. For once, his words couldn't reach me. Hannah appeared at my side, slipping her arm through mine. "It's done," she whispered. I exhaled, shaky but free. "It's almost done," I corrected softly, because I knew this wasn't just about him being arrested. It was about reclaiming my life, my voice, my strength. The next morning, headlines confirmed what I had witnessed. Local consultant arrested for harassment amid divorce battle. His fall was complete. I sat at my kitchen table, sipping coffee, letting the warmth steady me. For the first time in years, the future looked open. Mine. Mark's final stand had failed. And in failing, he had given me the closure I had been waiting for. I never imagined freedom would feel this quiet. Not the heavy silence that used to linger in our house when Mark's moods controlled every step I took, but a light, calm stillness, the kind of quiet that wraps around you like safety, not fear. A week after his arrest, I stood on my balcony watching the sunrise wash the city in gold. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. The phone buzzed. It was Ms. Alvarez. "Claire," she said warmly, I wanted you to hear it from me. Mark took a plea deal. He admitted guilt to harassment and violating the restraining order, 6 months in county jail, mandatory counseling, no chance of him appealing the divorce settlement. I closed my eyes, relief flooding me. So that's it? That's it, she confirmed. You're officially free. The words hit harder than I expected. Free. Not just legally, but emotionally. I hung up and let the reality sink in. My marriage, once the center of my world, was gone. My husband, once my closest friend, was exposed for who he truly was. And me? I was still standing, stronger than before. That evening, Hannah came over with a bottle of wine. She grinned as she placed it on the counter. To freedom? To freedom, I echoed, clinking my glass against hers. We sat on the couch, laughing, reminiscing, letting the tension of the past months finally melt away. At one point, she grew serious. You know, Claire, I was terrified you wouldn't make it out, that he'd break you before you ever got free. I looked at her, my chest tight with gratitude. You saved me more than once. You never gave up on me when I gave up on myself. She reached over and squeezed my hand. That's what best friends do. Later, when she left, I pulled out a notebook I had started keeping during therapy. Inside were pages of raw thoughts, fragments of memories, moments I had never said aloud. I flipped to a blank page and wrote one sentence. He no longer gets to write my story. I spent the following months rebuilding. Not just my finances or routines, but myself. I started running in the mornings, something Mark used to mock as pointless. Each mile felt like reclaiming a piece of me. I signed up for a ceramics class at the community center, letting my hands shape clay into something messy, but mine. Work became a place of empowerment rather than escape. My boss noticed the change. You seem lighter, she remarked during a meeting. More confident, I smiled. I guess I finally remembered who I am. Still, healing wasn't linear. Nights came when I jolted awake, heart racing, convinced he was outside my door. Days when shame whispered, how could you not have seen the lies sooner? But I had learned to counter those voices, with therapy, with Hannah's laughter, with every step forward that proved I wasn't defined by what he did to me, but by how I chose to rise after. The divorce finalized 3 months later. I walked out of the courthouse with the decree in hand, sunlight warming my face. Hannah was waiting on the steps, holding out her arms. It's official, she said, hugging me tight. Officially mine, I whispered. Not his, not broken, just me. As weeks passed, word spread in our community. People who once envied our perfect marriage now looked at me with new eyes. Some with pity, others with admiration. At first, their whispers made me uncomfortable. But then I realized their opinions didn't matter. What mattered was my voice. I began volunteering at a local support group for women leaving abusive relationships. The first night, I sat in a circle of strangers who carried the same haunted look I once wore. When it was my turn to speak, I hesitated. Then I told them the truth. About betrayal, about survival, about how the pain nearly drowned me, but how I clawed my way back to the surface. Tears glistened in their eyes, but not from pity, from recognition. One woman whispered, if you can do it, maybe I can too. In that moment, I realized Mark had taken so much, but he hadn't taken the most important thing. My voice, my story, my ability to turn scars into strength. Months later, I stood at the edge of a quiet lake on a warm summer evening. I held a small box in my hands, filled with pieces of my old life, photos, love notes, the necklace he once gave me that now felt like a chain. One by one, I dropped them into the water. The ripples carried them away, the surface swallowing the remnants of a life I no longer belonged to. Goodbye, Mark, I whispered, not with anger, not with bitterness, but with finality. The sunset painted the sky in shades of orange and pink. I breathed deeply, filling my lungs with air that felt new, untouched by the past. This was my final voice, not the cry of someone broken, but the steady declaration of someone whole again. As I walked back toward the path, my phone buzzed with a message from Hannah. Dinner tomorrow? My treat. I smiled, tucking the phone into my pocket. The future wasn't about surviving anymore. It was about living. And that's exactly what I intended to do. And if my story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that they too deserve respect and unconditional love. Sometimes the hardest battles aren't about defeating someone else, but about reclaiming yourself and realizing you were strong enough all along.